to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Miller. I'm a stroke survivor and grateful recovering alcoholic. Today, I'm going to talk about managing irrational thoughts. So, I wanted to start off by talking about the irrationality that I experienced when I was drinking, when I was getting close to my bottom, and what that felt like. And for those of you who are in sobriety, and then I wanted to talk about irrational thoughts in as a sober person in recovery from my stroke. And I have an experience today to pull from for this. So I actually started writing the topic earlier this morning before this event happened, and so I thought, oh, this is an example I can use for my podcast. So when I was drinking, more and more as I got towards the end of my drinking, I had this underlying trembling. So in my family, we have familial tremor syndrome. And so my father, my brother, and I have all experienced this underlying like trembling feeling. And it's like if you were to look at me, and my brother says it really nicely. If you were to look at us, you can't see us shaking, but you can feel the nerves jumping underneath our skin, and there are certain things that make it worse, like stress, and for me, withdrawal. So withdrawal, now I'll never know what withdrawal feels like without familial tremor syndrome, but I've been curious about whether I even have familial tremor syndrome, because once I cut out the drinking, I really have next to no feeling of jumping nerves. But I have noticed that if I miss my citalopram, which is for my anxiety, that feeling comes back. So I don't know if the citalopram is like indirectly addressing the familial tremor syndrome or not. So there's a lot kind of going on in there in this body of mine, but that's kind of a little bit of a background. So as I got closer to my bottom, that trembling just kept increasing, and what caused the trembling kept increasing. So the fear, I started becoming fearful of even going to the grocery store, leaving the house, going to the bus stop with the kids, talking on the phone, doing anything. I just became more and more fearful. And when I had to do something really significant, for example, there was one conference that I had to go to in San Diego, and my mind went blank again. Sorry. The trembling, I would subside it with drinking all the time. And so on this conference, I couldn't drink. I couldn't drink how much I normally would, which is all day long. So I was sitting through these sessions, and my body just started shaking to the point that the lady beside me actually looked over at me and was, I think, concerned that there was something wrong with me. And there was something wrong with me. I was going through withdrawal right in front of her. So once that was over, I finally got to, and I had these big, tall heels on. So just imagine shaking from withdrawal in high heels, trying to get yourself over to the happy hour so that you could put down a glass of wine. But I was shaking so bad that I could barely hold the glass of wine in my hand. I held it. I don't think anybody noticed, but what do I know? I had to hold the glass of wine with two hands to lift it up to my mouth to drink it. So I don't know if my colleagues that were standing beside me knew what was going on or not. Certainly nobody said anything to me, but it's a terrible feeling, and so with that fear, as it was increasing, and the more things that I was fearful of, came what I know now are irrational thoughts. And so that's kind of what kickstarts this idea of a topic today. And it's what I was feeling on the inside was quite the opposite of what I was trying to show people on the outside. And I don't know how successful I was. I'll never know how successful I was at showing other people that I was composed and professional and so forth. But what I do know today is that when I see another active alcoholic who has not put down the drink, I can tell that what they're trying to show me on the outside is not what they're feeling on the inside. I can see through that mask that they're trying to put on. Because I know it all too well, I can feel, I can see what they're feeling on the inside, and it tears me up to watch somebody just dying on the inside, just trembling on the inside, you know. So when I took the drinking away, eventually, so I went through a week of detox, and I was on a walker for 3 days, I think, because of withdrawal. And then on the fourth day, I was able to walk without a walker anymore. And that's when that trembling started to subside. But it took a long time for the trembling, for that physical trembling to diminish entirely. I can't tell you how long, but it took a while. But even though that physical trembling had gone away, the fear that was living inside me did not go away. I can take away the drinking to address those physical aspects, but the reason why I need a sobriety program is because there's a lot of fear on the inside, and much of it is irrational. Much of it, not all of it. There's a lot of fear that's it's all real. The fear is real. Our feelings. I don't like when people say our feelings aren't facts. I don't really like that quote, and the reason why is because a feeling feels like a fact. And by saying it's not a fact isn't helping me at all. It feels like a fact. And what I have to do is go through these exercises to almost negotiate with myself and convince me that that feeling that you're feeling, it's real. What you're feeling is real, and it needs to be acknowledged. But it's something that maybe we're spending too much energy on. Maybe we can calm it down. Maybe we can find something to replace that feeling with, something that's more positive and something that can help me move forward instead of standing still. I've talked about that difference between standing still and moving forward in a previous podcast. So I really did not know at that time those fears, much of them were irrational. I felt like all of that, like I'm saying, was very much factual. And over time, like looking back at the way that I reacted to those feelings, I was straight up crazy. I was crazy on the inside. I was crazy. And there was nothing to do about it. Nobody could reason with me and try to convince me that what I was feeling was crazy. But it absolutely was. I was living in this unrealistic, I had an unrealistic perspective on reality. Um, so it took taking the drink away, number one, and then it takes a program. It takes, I feel like, a really methodical approach to address irrational thinking. And it can't be dismissed. It just can't be dismissed. It needs to be talked through. So that's my very strong opinion about all of that. And so, because I have that experience to draw from, I have a maybe unique perspective on irrational thinking. Not unique from other alcoholics, but unique from people who have not experienced the craziness that comes with being an alcoholic. So, one of my thoughts today is, I was taking some notes down, and I wrote down understanding irrational thoughts. Number one, they aren't true. And just like I just mentioned, I really don't like to say that, because they're thoughts. They're true in their own right. That's what they are. They are constructed to be true in your mind. But what they aren't is based on facts. Your thoughts, irrational thoughts, are not based on facts. They're based on what I was talking about the past 2 days, adding narrative to what really happened. So, there are some common ways that human beings have irrational thoughts. They're like categorized into different ways. You may have heard this before. So I'm going to go over these different ways that we think irrationally. So the first way is all or nothing, meaning either things are going to be one way, or they're not going to be at all. The black and white approach. So, if this doesn't happen, then my life is over. It reminds me of when you're talking to your high schooler and they're like, if you don't let me go onto my social media account, then my life is over as we know it. That is the all or nothing thing. It's just completely irrational. The second one is catastrophizing. So I'm a huge catastrophizer, and A plus for pronouncing that word. um, and so I think that my example that I'm going to give later in the show is catastrophizing. And okay, so the third example of irrational thoughts is mind reading. So this is like assuming what somebody else is thinking. And I do that all the time too. If somebody doesn't respond to me in a certain way, then I'm like, oh my God, they're totally pissed at me. What did I do? And I oh my gosh, I do it all the time. I do it with my boyfriend. Like he'll be making dinner and he's focused on what it is that he's making, reading the directions or whatever. We do this, we do every plate where you get the food delivered to you on Mondays. So he has been making all of these since I have been unable to read and follow directions since my stroke symptoms have exacerbated. So he's been doing this, and so I'm just sitting there, I'm either listening to YouTube or listening to the news or something like that. And I'll say something to him, like if I hear a news headline and I comment on that and he doesn't say anything when I comment, I'm thinking, oh my God, he's totally pissed at me that I didn't take the trash out or something like that. Like it's crazy. Instead of, just asking or something. So anyway, that's the mind reading, assuming what somebody else is thinking. And then there's overgeneralization. So that would be something like, of course, I had the stroke. Everything bad always happens to me. I'm an alcoholic. I'm the one who had the stroke, and that's generalizing. The last one is personalization. So thinking that it's all about you when maybe it may have nothing to do with you. So I did have an example of that. What was it? I feel like it just happened today. Anyway, when somebody is, maybe in a conversation and they say something, let's say there's 5 people in this conversation, and one of the people says something that you can really identify with, but it almost feels like it was a jab at you. Then personalization means that you just assume that what they said was a jab at you, and that it was all about you. So, okay. So what causes irrational thinking? Well, what causes irrational thinking is that it's just plain old part of being a human being. And that's what we do. That's what the power of our brains lets us do. It's actually quite extraordinary that our brains have the ability to use this kind of imagination and visualization and making up stories and the fact that we can create our own narratives and stuff like that. It's extraordinary that we can do that. However, when it comes from stress, anxiety, depression, or any severely, diagnosed severe medical condition or mental condition, it can be pretty terrible. It can be absolutely terrible. It can be lead to fatalities. It's really scary. And so I am not talking about any of the irrational thinking that that is correlated with delusions or anything like that. Nothing that has to do with these severe medical conditions. But what I am going to talk about is the stuff that I've experienced, which is um, just that those categories that I just previously read. So, what can we do about irrational thinking? How can we manage irrational thinking? And so, the first step is to learn more about it. So that's what we're doing here. If we can learn more about each one of these categories and think of examples for each one, then when we're out living and we're thinking of something irrational, we are more likely to identify the thought as irrational because we've practiced it. It's all about practice. It always comes back to practice. I feel like most of my episodes come down to some basic things, like yeah, I'm not going to give examples right now because that would be too much for my brain right now. But anyway, I feel like I'm always coming back to the same type of advice for myself. So learning about these common irrational thinking examples are the first step, so that when we're in a challenging situation, we can take a look at our self-talk and see if it falls under these any one of these 5 categories. So I'm going to tell you what happened today that pissed me off, and we're gonna work through this irrational thinking together. So here we go. What happened was I am supposed to have an MRI tomorrow at 6:30 at Reston Hospital. I've been waiting for this MRI for 2 weeks. Now, let's back up a little bit. I say I've been waiting for this MRI for 2 weeks, but in all honesty, I've been waiting for this MRI for 2 months because it took a month to get into the neurology office, and then it took 2 weeks to schedule the MRI, and so that's a month and a half. Well, this is what happened. I got a text today from the hospital, and they said your authorization for your MRI was denied by your insurance company, and so give us a call. So I called them, and she said that it was denied. They tried to work with the doctor's office, but they didn't receive a response. So we're going to have to reschedule the MRI. So I was like, oh my God, it was devastating. I'm devastated, right? I'm devastated that I've been waiting a month and a half, and I don't know what the hell is going on inside my brain. Did I have another stroke? Is there something happening in there that could be helped like immediately? I don't know. I don't know until somebody takes a freaking picture of my brain. And otherwise, it's just locked safe inside my skull, and there's nobody knows what's going on in there. So I'm just like, oh my God, you're kidding me. So she's like, I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me transfer you to the rescheduling area. And I'm imagining, okay, the rescheduling area is the lady sitting right next to you. So just hand the phone. Anyway, I'm starting to get that really pissy feeling in my head. So anyway, she transfers me to the scheduling line, and they're like, thank you for calling. You are 5th in line. And so I hung up. I was like, this is going nowhere fast. So I thought, I'm not giving up yet. I'm not just going to reschedule my MRI. I'm going to call the insurance company and find out what's going on. Well, first I thought I'm going to call the doctor's office and find out what's going on. And then I'm like, they don't know. So I'm going to call the insurance company and find out what's going on. So I talked to a lovely lady named Latasha, And she gave me the information and said that, notice that's the only name that I've given in this entire podcast for months. So I talked to Latasha, and she gave me, mine went blank again. The information that the insurance company denied it because, no, they denied it because they didn't have enough information, and they asked the doctor for information, but they didn't receive it, so they denied it. And so I appreciated Latasha's information. So I called the doctor's office, and it started ringing, and then I thought, I have another voicemail. So I checked the voicemail, and it was from the hospital saying that they that they talked to the doctor, and the doctor sent the additional information over to the insurance company. And so I was like, oh, okay, so the insurance company has what they need. They just need somebody to walk it over to a different desk to get it done. So I called the insurance company back, and I talked to Amy G. Amy G at Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield is the best actual helper person ever. So I talked to her. She was so great and personable, and like, just, I felt like she was my sister. It was awesome. And so she called the doctor's office and did all the stuff. And she was talking to her supervisor, like, what can we do? And well, it turns out that yes, they have my information, but there is no way for her to find out what's happening in the authorization department to find out, like, if it's going to be approved or not, or whatever. It would take 24 hours for it to be approved in their system. So that's it. I love Amy G, and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield sucks, and they did not come through and help me. I just cannot believe that my health is in the hands of these people, and they cannot move a piece of paper to a different department in 24 hours so I can find out whether my brain is bleeding or not, or I don't have brain bleeding. I had a clot, side note. But anyway, just so pissed off. I'm sorry I said something negative about Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. Sorry. And the most part, they're great. It's just that this information, this is just devastating for me. So, that's what happened. And so I had to reschedule my MRI for another 2 weeks. So now my MRI is on the 29th of August, and my follow-up with the neurologist was supposed to be on the 30th. So guess what that means? I have to reschedule my follow-up visit with the neurologist. Well, the last time I tried to schedule a follow-up visit with the neurologist, they couldn't get me in for a month. So that means I'm waiting 3 months now for one MRI. That's it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I could be dead by 3 months. I'm not gonna be, kids. But you know what I mean? It's terrible. It's just terrible. So what's my irrational thinking? So my irrational thinking started blooming from my anger and my stress. That's where it started blooming. So this is what I was thinking. These are the 3 things that came to mind, my irrational thinking. 1, I'm never going to get better. I'm never going to get better. 2, what if I'm having a continuous event in my brain that just is slowly damaging everything in my brain? Like my brain's slowly shutting down. And then 3, I'm pissed at the claims or authorization examiner. So all 3 of these are irrational. And so we're going to talk through a way to manage irrational thinking. So we'll start with the first one. I'm never going to get better. So the first thing that we want to do is figure out what category that's in. So if we look at the categories, we have all or nothing, catastrophizing, mind reading, overgeneralization, and personalization. So, I think, I don't know what you would choose, but my first inclination is overgeneralization, that I'm never going to get better, but I think it's more all or nothing. I'm never going to get better. That's what seems to be. Let's see, it makes me laugh now. Okay, so we named it, and that's one of the themes that I always come back to in this podcast is to give your thoughts and your feelings names. That's where you always start. Give it a name. So, second, replace the irrational thought. So, number 1 is name your irrational thought. 2 is replace the irrational thought. So, instead of saying, I'm never going to get better, I'm going to replace that with, I am going to get better. It already feels better to say that. I am going to get better. So, number 3 is it's okay to be unhappy, but bring it back to the facts. So, what are the facts? The facts are that my MRI has been moved. That's it. My MRI has been moved. I'm no worse off right now, this evening, than I was this morning when I woke up thinking that my MRI was the next day. So, why on earth would I think all of a sudden I'm not going to get any better, right? I'm going to get better in some way. I don't know how, but I'm going to get better. And that didn't sound very positive. I'm going to get better. I'm not going to be the same. That's for sure. Okay, so the last step is there any action I can take? So what comes to mind for me, the action I can take to get better is to continue to do my vision therapy, to for my my tracking and stuff that they're trying to help me work on, to continue to do the podcast to help with my mental health, and continue to eat, exercise, meditate. So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed since yesterday. I still have to do these things. The only thing that changed is that I have to wait again. And that hasn't even changed. I was already waiting. So nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. Okay, next one. What if I'm having a continuous event in my brain that slowly damages everything? That's my next irrational thought. Well, here's the thing. My neurologist gave me something called verapamil, and this is a migraine medication that they give folks who have migraines that include dizziness. Well, I didn't realize until today that the reason why my symptoms have evolved and just completely, I don't know if evolved or shifted, so that I'm not having that rubber band feeling so much anymore, but I'm like extremely dizzy and lightheaded. And so I put 2 and 2 together that they told me when they gave me the verapamil a couple weeks ago that if you start feeling lightheaded, that to stop taking it. So I think that is what's happening. So I just stopped taking it right away today when I realized that. So I would rather have the pain than this feeling like I'm gonna pass out. So anyway, so my point is I started thinking, what if I'm having a continuous event in my head because of this dizziness, because this is like not going away at all, and I'm getting more and more unsteady on my feet and having to keep my eyes closed and stuff. So I feel, honestly, like right this minute, I feel worse than I ever have. Um Other than, like, I don't have the rubber bands, but I definitely just feel um very woozy. Yeah. So it has scared me. And so I just realized that maybe it's not that I'm having a continuous stroke in my head. That it's just the medication, right? So here we go. I'm naming it. What is that? I'm having a continue my pretty much I was saying that my brain is just completely gonna shut down. So let's look at the categories again. All or nothing, catastrophizing, mind reading, overgeneralization, personalization. That's definitely catastrophizing. So we've given it a name. Next, replace the irrational thought. So replacing it is that the the symptoms that I'm having right now are due to my migraine medication, and I'm going to stop taking that immediately. Number 3, it's okay to be unhappy, but bring it back to the facts. The facts are that I am on a different medication and it's not working, and I'm going to stop taking it. That's the fact. Number 4, is there any action I can take? Yes, I can stop taking it. So, okay, last one. I am pissed at the claims and authorization examiner for denying my claim. I mean, let me just vent for a second. My best friend Amy G at Anthem told me was that they needed more information about the history of my symptoms that I've been dealing with. I mean, look in your file and see that I had a stroke 2 years ago and MRIs and stuff. Like, what is happening in this world? Anyway, I'm pissed at them because I want to call them stupid. I think that the claims examiner is stupid. There, I've said it. And that does feel good. I don't care who you are. To call somebody stupid, it feels good because it's not a real person. It's just this imaginary stupid claims examiner with a stupid face. Okay, so I need to give it a name. I'm pissed at the claims examiner. Let's take a look at our categories again. All or nothing, catastrophizing, mind reading, over generalization, personalization. Okay, so I'm going to categorize this as personalization, and I'll tell you why. Because I just was talking about how, well, didn't they look at my record and didn't they see that I had a stroke and me. Well, if I really just back up, this is really difficult when you're pissed off. If I were to just back up and think about this claims examiner, if I take off their stupid face and put a nice face on them, and I think about this person who could be like we'll say a 30-year-old person who's just sitting there trying to do their job, they have guidelines that they have to follow. And what they did not have is enough information to approve the claim. And they have to be accountable for what they approve and what they deny. So if I'm putting my little angel wings on, I'm going to say that it's personalization, and I'm not going to say that this person has an a stupid face. So I named it personalization. Number 2, replace the irrational thought. So I'm replacing the irrational thought that I'm pissed at the claims examiner with the claims examiner was doing their job. And number 3, it's okay to be unhappy, but bring it back to the facts. Okay, it's okay to be unhappy. I'm pissed that I didn't get my authorization approved in time. I'm okay. It's okay to be pissed off. I am pissed off. I'm sad. I'm pissed off. I'm frustrated. All of those feelings are fine. And the facts are that they're re-reviewing it, and it'll probably be approved by tomorrow or the next day. And believe you me, I'll be checking to make sure that it's approved on time now. And another side note, I mean, this is a venting session here. Why did they wait until the day before? No, I guess it was 3 days before the MRI to finally look at the authorization. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, okay, I'm done. I swear that's my last vent. And so finally, number 4, is there any action I can take? Honestly, I did take the action already. So what I did was I called the insurance company and talked, and I was super, super nice to Amy G, and have a new best friend. She told me that if I ever want to talk to just her, I can call and ask for her. So I have my own insurance agent now. So lucky me. I still feel bad that I said something negative about Anthem. I think maybe I shouldn't do that on a public forum. Anyway, Anthem, you're great. Rah, rah. Okay. Is there any action? Yeah, so I already did. I called Amy G at Anthem, and we tried to take the action within our power, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out. So that's a wrap. That's a wrap on irrational thoughts. I think I feel a little better. I hope that you can apply some of these skills to managing your own irrational thoughts. So just to summarize, the way that you manage irrational thoughts is, number 1, name the category that it's in. And those categories, one more time, are all or nothing, catastrophizing, mind reading, overgeneralization, and personalization. So after you figure out what category your irrational thought is in, then you replace it with a rational thought. And then number 3, acknowledge that you're unhappy. Like, don't try to dismiss the fact that you're pissed. That part is totally fine. It's what that anger makes our brains do, starts developing this narrative and stuff like that. That's what we're trying to stop. So it's okay to be unhappy, acknowledge that, but bring it back to the facts. What actually happened? And then number 4, is there an action that I can take? Because it's all about the podcast. We always come back to willingness, action-based mindset. So hopefully this is helpful to you. Certainly was helpful for me to get past what pissed me off today. And thanks for listening. Share this with a friend. Please, please, please share this episode with a friend. A lot of the episodes I've been starting to realize can really apply to anybody, any human being. So please feel free to share. It would be great if we continue to grow the community. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow.